Okay, I got 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll take attendance first. I can see everybody, but I call everybody's names anyway. Sandy?
Here.
Dan?
Present.
Heather?
Present.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any written disclosure of pecuniary conflict of interest? Councillor Cross?
Yes, I do. On item E, because I'm a member.
E. Okay. Councillor Maxwell?
No conflict of interest.
And Councillor Olmsted?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is petitions and delegations. We have one. I'm not sure if Lori Boyle is with us or not.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Could you go ahead then, please, Lori?
Yes. I would like to thank the Mayor and Council for giving me the opportunity tonight to speak. We, Chris and Lori Boyle, have lived at 56 Stewards Road for 28 years. In 1993, we chose to build our home on a seasonal road. Upon completion, we received a seasonal dwelling permit. For approximately 17 years, we were the only homeowners on Stewards. This is our primary seasonal residence. Property owners on seasonal roads pay reduced taxes. Impact assessments are lower because of the road status. In 28 years, we never required any sort of winter maintenance. In 28 years, we have never requested any sort of winter maintenance. Going forward, we will not require any winter maintenance. If winter maintenance is to proceed at the request of one resident, then I ask Council to refer to bylaw number 2017-015 that was created in 2017 because the same Stewards Road resident was requesting year-round maintenance on seasonal Stewards Road. Council must be satisfied that 100% of all property owners who will receive direct benefit from the full assumption of the road agree to the undertaking, one owner's signature per benefiting property. Requests not supported by 100% of property owners will not be considered. Does the road serve or will serve 5 or more separate and district parcels of land? The other seasonal resident is requesting winter maintenance. The primary cost estimate of carrying out this option has been determined at $165,000. Are taxpayers going to pay for this because one seasonal resident on a single seasonal road is requesting winter maintenance? This issue has been discussed for years. Thousands of dollars have been spent, undue stress has been placed on municipal employees, and hatred has developed in the community because one seasonal resident on a single seasonal road is requesting winter maintenance. There are 4 other seasonal roads to consider. How council proceeds must be applied to all seasonal roads. This would be millions of dollars. Are taxpayers going to pay for this too? Because one seasonal resident on a single seasonal road is requesting winter maintenance? Should one property owner pay for something another property owner wants? Turn neighbor against neighbor? Is this what council wants? Because one seasonal resident on a single seasonal road is requesting winter maintenance? If property owners on a seasonal road require winter maintenance, then they should be required to pay full cost, not any taxpayer of Calvin. It was also suggested to plow the road so residents would receive emergency service. February 9th, 2009, there was a medical emergency at the end of Stewards into Lauder Township. The ambulance did assist without issue. Emergency services are provided to anyone, anywhere, in every situation. Now, I have one question, and I'd like you to give your answer to Cindy, and also if anybody has questions for me, to give the question to Cindy, and I will reply. My question is, why is bylaw 2017-015 not being applied? I'd like to thank you again for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Good night, Lori. Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is reports from municipal officers, and we have none. Next item on the agenda is reports from committees, of which we have none. And then the next item on the agenda is action letters, being to adopt the minutes of Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. So I'm going to need a mover and a seconder to adopt these minutes. Can I get a mover? Heather? Thank you. Andy, can you second it?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have this resolution moved by Councillor Olmsted and seconded by Councillor Cross. That's minutes of the regular meeting of the council held on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, be hereby adopted and signed as circulated. Any discussion on this resolution? Councillor Cross.
No discussion.
Councillor Maxwell.
No discussion?
And Councillor Olmsted.
No discussion.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote to adopt these minutes. Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
And Councillor Olmsted, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes as well. So this resolution is carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is to adopt the minutes of the ad hoc committee meeting from Monday, March the 1st, 2021. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that as well. Councillor Maxwell, could you move this one, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And Councillor Cross, could you second this one, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So we have this resolution moved by Councillor Maxwell, seconded by Councillor Cross, that the minutes of the ad hoc road committee for the public swimming access to the Amab Dufon River held on Monday, March the 1st, be hereby adopted and signed as circulated. Is there any discussion on this, Councillor Cross?
No discussion.
Councillor Maxwell?
And no discussion?
And Councillor Olmsted?
No, it's moving along quite nicely. I think we're
Okay.
coming to a good conclusion. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to call for a vote on this resolution as well. Councillor Olmsted, do you vote to accept this resolution?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, do you vote yes or no?
Yes, I do.
And Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, I
I
did
vote
have a
yes.
question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Who's that?
If I'm
Okay.
on the ad hoc committee, am I allowed to vote on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I said I voted as well. Yes. So this resolution is carried. Next item on the agenda is bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the first quarter, which would be January the 1st to March the 31st, 2021. So this bylaw was read a first time and a second time. So this is was this not read the first time on the 27th of April?
Today is the 27th. This is
Oh,
the,
today is the 27th.
Yes,
Great.
this is the first time it's been brought forward.
Okay. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder for the first reading of this bylaw. Councillor Maxwell, can you move this one, please?
Yes, I can.
And Councillor Olmsted, can you second it, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have the first reading of this bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, moved by Councillor Maxwell and seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Any discussion? Councillor Cross.
No discussion.
Councillor Maxwell
No discussion?
and Councillor Olmsted.
No discussion.
Okay. So I'm going to call for a vote on the first reading on this bylaw. Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no to accept it?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell
Yes.
and Councillor Olmsted.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So the first reading is carried. We want the second reading. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that as well. Councillor Cross, can you move for that one, please?
Yes, I can.
And Councillor Olmsted, can you second that one, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the second reading, we've been moved by Councillor Cross and seconded by Councillor Olmsted. And so I'm going to ask if there's any discussion on the second reading as well. Councillor Olmsted,
No discussion.
Councillor Cross,
No discussion.
and Councillor Maxwell.
No discussion?
Thank you. So I'm going to call for a vote on the second reading. Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no to accept it?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
And Councillor Olmsted, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. So the second reading is carried as well. Thank you very much. Okay. Next item on the agenda, excuse me, report from the clerk treasurer. It's 2021 CP22 report to council of the emergency control group meeting summary. It was in a council package last week. Thinking everyone had a chance to read it. Were there any questions on that? Councillor Cross?
No questions.
Councillor Olmsted?
No, I didn't have any questions, thanks.
Okay, and Councillor Maxwell?
No questions?
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the report, a request for an update on potential purchase of a CCAN, and that was report 2021 CT25 storage container. And Sandy, Councillor Cross has declared a conflict on this. So looks like Mrs. Sparks, on behalf of the Calvin's Women's Association, is looking for an update. So the back, I guess I can read this. Okay, so on behalf of the Calvin's Women's Association, while looking at our summer season, has become to our attention that we have, I can't read it because it's off the screen, haven't, I guess, received any, I'll see if I can move this.
I can see it better. Do you want me to read it?
I got rid of
Mr.
my
Mayor?
there now.
Okay.
So, I'll start over. On behalf of the CWA, while looking at our summer season, it has come to our attention that we have not received any decision on a request of a storage container to be put at the hall. With this, it would free up more space and generate more usage of the hall in activities and rentals. It will make the hall look much more organized and cleaner. We're hoping to get permission from council to move forward with this idea as soon as possible. We believe the council was considering this as possible future improvement plan. If the council would also consider putting some money aside for this in your future budget, that would be wonderful. Could you please put this on the next agenda for consideration? So there has been, I believe, some consideration given for this, and we can see here that the CWA approached council back in 2020, and there was some factors that weren't known at the time. I'm not sure if we still have that information or received that information about what's going to be on the ground. Is it going to be a cement pad? Is it going to be gravel? Is it going to fit in with the building? Are we going to have to move the green bin? How are we going to get from the storage container into the hall? There's things to consider there too, as in whether it's snow in the winter, where are we going to put the green container? There's all kinds of stuff there, right? And then there was also about how it's going to look. We'd probably have to paint it every couple of years because it's steel, right? So it's going to probably try to rust on us. So I think they're just looking for some kind of an idea as what we're going to do.
Can I say something? I thought when we were discussing it, we would think more of a permanent structure, because for our official plan, they frowned upon them, and I don't think it would set a very good precedent. So perhaps we could look at a more permanent structure.
Are you meaning a building?
Yeah. I don't think it has to be all that big. It could just be a 10 by 10, I think, just to store chairs in and stuff.
I'm not sure everything in the container would be used for, but it was my understanding that it'd be for tables and chairs.
Yeah. Because basically they're in that back, in the back where it used to be the bar area of the hall, right? And that's where all those chairs and tables are stored. So I think that's around 10 by 10.
Yeah.
And then, then we can kind of keep it with our own kind of, we wouldn't have to worry about the grading and stuff, because building a shed, we have to get a plane, all that. And although I don't want to build one out of wood right now. So,
Anybody else have any thoughts? Councillor Maxwell?
Yeah, I think that we'll need to see a more detailed plan on the exact idea before we can approve it for construction, because we will need some kind of foundation support for the container and a walkway to it. That the walkway also may have to be covered due to ice and snow. We're going to be wheeling dollies down this cement ramp. It'd be ideal to have it covered. So I'd like to see a proposal brought forward with a complete drawing of where it will actually be situated and the cost of doing that. Because sometimes these projects, although they seem like a good idea in the beginning, it just they'll purchase a seat can. The actual installation of it and the arrangements that we have to do to make it work ends up costing us 2 or 3 times more than the cost of the seat can. Just with we would have to have at least a cement walkway going to it. I think that probably would be the most economical, and there's ramps to be considered. So we need a drawing of what the proposal is. I don't know if that's done in our department, through our staff, or if that's done by the group that wants to purchase this. We do benefit it, so we'd have to decide on which cost we are going to absorb as council, and which costs that they are going to donate. If it's just a matter of donating us the CCAN, that's the portion that they want to provide. I think there's still a significant cost in making a structure to connect the CCAN to the building. We would have to have it have to be safe, so that I think it would need a roof, the walkway. And it also would have to fit into our plan, which we haven't got designed yet, the official plan of how we want to see everything to be laid out in our grounds with our hall, and any expansion there, because any future expansion of the facility there would have to be, it should be part of the major layout of the major plan that we have for the area. So if we're just building putting things in random spots, it doesn't make for good planning in the future. And that container might be in the way for some other project that we haven't considered yet. So perhaps in our strategic plan, we have to look at what our development is for the future of that area and consider. Now, I think that it is a good short-term plan right now to address our issue of lack of storage in the hall. Our hall is kind of tight and small, so there's not a lot of area to store. So it does make sense that it would be a good short-term storage, but to do it in such a way that it doesn't become a major project, we'll have to just watch that. And I'd like to know how much, if our staff's going to do a project proposal on that, I'd like to see the cost of the materials and the hours that we have to spend on it, and everything that's involved with the project, and a drawing that's showing exactly where it's going to go. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty good to me. Either one way or the other, right? Like both ways, which way, the plan, the cost, both that before we can really take a look at it and consider it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some other things we're going to need to consider there too, I think, and it's like you mentioned, how do we get that stuff into the hall in the wintertime? So that's something we're going to have to consider. And who's going to put it in the hall in the wintertime? I don't think we want the people renting the hall to do that, because if they get hurt, then we could be probably liable for that. So, yeah, and then in the report, there's also talk about mold and mildew and that stuff, so we need to make sure, we need a plan, okay, so it doesn't go off the rails. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to move ahead with the resolution here that we have for this.
Mayor Pennell,
Yes.
can I
Yes,
just ask
please.
a couple questions first, please?
Okay.
So in order for us to build a plan, can council make some decisions so that we're not getting lost on a whole bunch of different things? Can you decide, do you want cement pad underneath it, or do you want gravel? What do you want us to cost out? Just so that we're not spending a whole bunch of time on trying to define things, and then it's a waste of time. So can council make decisions on a few things so that we can narrow it down a little bit and provide a more accurate cost of how much this would cost the municipality?
Okay.
Please?
I don't think that we need cement. I think that gravel is good enough underneath it, but probably a cement walkway. I don't know.
I'd agree with that. A cement walkway probably, and maybe cost with and without a cover on it. And I think we'd have to consult our building inspector to see if the ground is stable enough there to install a CCAN without. They may need to be required to put 4 foot deep support pillars in, so that it doesn't shrink and shift over the year. I don't know. Maybe it could be just adjusted, jacked up, and fixed according yearly. But I think they're pretty heavy. So once they're in place, if it starts to sink in one corner, it's going to be a big deal for us at council suddenly to rectify it. So it would have to be installed on some kind of stable structure, whether that be gravel or whether it be some 6 foot post, some support posts put into the ground below the frost line. I don't think there's any regulations on CCANs with regards to how they're installed, though, that I'm aware of.
No, we just had ours delivered, and every couple of years we just pump it up with the tractor. But I don't think we can do that at the town hall.
Okay. I kind of like the idea of it being installed on like cement blocks or something to get it off the ground, not necessarily a cement pad. And I would like to see a walkway from the unit to the back door, so that not necessarily a ramp, because then you're down one and up another. And if you remember those tables and chairs, like they're on those carts, but they're pretty heavy. So that'd be a lot of weight doing that. It'd be nice if it was like flat. I'd also like to have the option of looking, see what the cost of installing one of these is. And I don't know what, I think it sounds like we're doing a 20-foot container, or thinking about a 20-foot container, because a 40-foot container would be way excess of what would be required for that. I think we should look at the back room where the tables and chairs are stored now, and see what the dimensions of that is, and then maybe also get a plan to build something out of wood. Okay, so that we have two options we can look at. I know wood's pretty expensive, but it'd be nice to have both those options. I don't know if everybody's in agreement or not.
I think something that would could be an addition onto the hall so that it actually doesn't go outside too. That's a possibility, or if it's I'm not sure
Yeah,
if there's an exterior wall that.
just an addition.
adds
Yeah,
to-
an addition. That could be a very cost-effective addition. That's a good idea.
Yeah, maybe it could be added on right behind where the old bar area is now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is
Put
that
your door through there.
sufficient, Cindy?
That
Is
gives
that
us any
sufficient ideas, or?
or to look into, yes.
Okay. Anything
Sorry.
else to add, either Council Olmsted or Council Maxwell?
No, Cindy
No.
has enough work to do. Sorry.
No, other than our budget is, I'm not looking to keep the budget low this season. That's the only thing. So I'm not looking to spending a lot of money on project right now, unless we can get help from someone, some other grant or something like that. So that's the reality of it.
It's my understanding that the CCAN won't be purchased this year, so this won't be in this year's budget.
I think a 20-foot can used is probably going to run you around $4,000, I think, something like that. That would be
A good one
used,
with
though.
2 doors.
Wouldn't be brand new, that's for sure. So is this resolution then still valid? That council hereby requests that staff investigate, research, and prepare a report regarding the costs associated with having an outdoor storage container for the hall. The outdoor storage container could be both the CCAN and the building, right? So I need a mover and a seconder for this. Councillor Maxwell, can you move this one, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Olmsted, can you second it, please?
Yes.
Any further discussion, Councillor Maxwell?
No further discussion.
Councillor Olmsted?
No. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote to move ahead with this request to develop this, get this information together for us. Councillor Maxwell, do you agree, yes or no?
Yes.
And Councillor Olmsted, yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
I vote yes. So this resolution is carried. Thank you very much. Did Sandy log off, or?
Oh, there she is.
There she is. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a report from the clerk treasurer, and it's 2021 CT23 report to council concerning complaints received from January the 1st to March the 31st, 2021. And we had a report in our package. It's on the screen now in front of us. Looked like there was one building complaint and 2 roads complaints. And building without permit was one of them, and then 2 roads complaints. Any questions here? Councillor Cross?
Just they've all been looked into and addressed? And is everything all okay now?
There's
It
one
was
complaint is
determined
still
the
under.
two of the complaints met the municipal service standards, and one complaint is still under investigation.
Any other questions, Councillor Maxwell?
No questions.
Councillor Olmsted?
No questions.
Okay. Move on. Next item on the agenda is the ad hoc public swimming access to Mabdeful River Committee, a project management plan for the public swimming access to the Mabdeful River. Okay. So we have a resolution in front of us for that. So I need a mover and a seconder on this one. So Councillor Cross, can you move this one, please?
Yes, I can.
And Councillor Maxwell, can you second it, please?
Yes, again.
Thank you. Excuse me. So we have a resolution moved by Councillor Cross, second by Councillor Maxwell. That council hereby authorize the Recreation and Administration Departments to proceed with a public swimming access to the Mabdeful River Project Management Plan, prepared by the Ad hoc Committee for the Public Swimming Access to the Mabdeful River. And further, the cost of this project will be included in the 2021 municipal budget. Is there any discussion? Councillor Maxwell?
Is there a line in the budget that refers to the cost? I was just trying to skim through it, looking, I didn't see it.
It would be included in a number, like, probably in capital costs. We haven't, essentially it's just some garbage cans and some signs, so it's not gonna cost all that much. Heather, would you like to add anything further to this?
Yeah, well, upon our committee, the only real concerns, most of them have been addressed already, just putting in the filling station. And with Chris nicely putting those rocks in for a barrier, the neighbors won't have ATVs running through their yard anymore, thank goodness. So now we just have to address the garbage and just basically make sure people move their vehicles, like they can't leave their vehicles unattended. So if they're down swimming and the fire truck's coming, you best be getting in that car and moving it. Then, yeah. So basically it's just some signs and some garbage cans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
No further questions.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to call for a vote on this resolution. So Councillor Maxwell, do you vote to proceed, yes or no?
Yes, I do.
And Councillor Olmsted, do you vote to proceed, yes or no?
Yes.
And Councillor Cross, do you vote to proceed, yes or no?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So this resolution is carried. Thanks very much. In our last meeting, during the reading the letters, there was one item in there about 988 suicide line, and we suggested at the last meeting that we'd like to support that. All right, so I'll need a mover and a seconder to support that resolution. So Councillor Olmsted, could you move this one, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay. And Councillor Cross, could you second this one, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion required on this? Councillor Cross?
No discussion.
No? Okay. Councillor Maxwell?
I just had, I was curious on, I think I'm very sympathetic to the cause and I'd like to support it, but do we already pay a service for the 911 service in our township per resident? I'm just, I would hate to see this be implemented and have us having to pay a yearly fee like we do for the 911. I think there's quite a cost to the 911 service.
I don't know about that, but I know it's a federal government initiative responding to a motion. But I think we pay for 911. Am I correct, Cindy?
I would have to look into it to see who pays what. Off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, it's not necessary. That's fine. I'm okay with the motion the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olmsted, do you have anything you'd like to offer?
No, I think this speaks for itself. It's a good idea.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote on whether to proceed with this resolution. Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no?
Yes,
Councillor Maxwell, do you vote yes or no to proceed?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Thank you. And Councillor Olmsted, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So this resolution is carried. Thank you.
Welcome.
Next item on the agenda is another resolution. This time it's concerning fire department report. So I'll need a mover and a seconder for this one, please. So Councillor Maxwell, can you move this one?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And Councillor Olmsted, can you second it, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So everyone's had a chance to read this. I can go through it. Basically, it says that therefore the Council of the Corporation of Smithfield Calvin resolves the following: that the federal and provincial governments includes apparatus, training, equipment, and structures for fire departments as eligible categories to any further infrastructure programs which will not provide immediate stimulus to the local, provincial, or federal economies given current economic uncertainty, but also ensures the safety of Canadians and dedicated firefighters, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Lori Scott, Minister of Infrastructure, local MPP, local MP, the Ontario Fire Marshal, John Pegg, the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, and all Ontario municipalities. Any discussion? Councillor Cross.
No, I just think this is something good to support.
Okay. Councillor Maxwell?
No discussion.
Councillor Olmsted?
Nope. Good.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote to proceed with this resolution. Councillor Cross, do you vote to proceed?
Yes.
And Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And Councillor Olmsted?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So this resolution is also carried. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a support motion for the municipal election candidate qualifications. We had a discussion at this at our last meeting as well. I'll need a mover and a seconder for this one, please. So, Councillor Cross, can you move this one, please?
Yes, I can.
And Councillor Maxwell, can you second it?
Can you ask Councillor Olmsted too? I'm probably going to not support this one.
Pardon
No,
me?
I pass.
You're not going to support this
Wants me
one?
to second it.
That's right.
so-
You asked Councillor Olmsted to support it, to second it. It just would look funny if I vote against it. I've seconded it.
Okay, so did you second it?
No.
Yeah, I can second it.
Okay, Councillor Olmsted then. You're going to second
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yes.
It was just a bunch of noise when everyone was talking. So I'm going to read this one, all of it, as soon as I have a drink. Whereas elected officials of a municipality or township are expected to be above reproach and to conduct themselves with integrity, truth, justice, honesty, and transparency and courtesy, and whereas there are people of dubious character who have a criminal record, have been convicted of a federal offense, and any of the federal statutes of Canada, but not limited to the Criminal Code or Narcotic Control Act, who are currently on council of a municipality or have let their names stand for election for mayor, reeve, or councillor as a municipal candidate. Notwithstanding provisions of the Ontario Human Rights Code, therefore be it resolved that the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin hereby supports the Township of Conmee as they lobby the provincial government to amend the Municipal Act and Municipal Elections Act that may be so that people with a criminal record who have not had their record cleared from the RCMP database by order of the Governor General of Canada be prohibited from becoming a candidate in municipal elections, and that an elected local government official be disqualified from office once conviction of a serious criminal offense and must resign, and that the council direct the clerk treasurer to send a copy of this resolution to the Ontario Premier Doug Ford, NOMA, Attorney General Doug Downey, Solicitor General Sylvia Jones, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing Steve Clark, AMO Roma, and MPP Vic Fideli. Any discussion, Councillor Cross?
No discussion.
Councillor Maxwell?
I know that there's good intentions in this resolution, and I applaud that. But I think that I won't be supporting this resolution just on the basis that have you ever seen the movie Velma and Louise? It's a good example of what I'm thinking of here. That sometimes it's sometimes these situations. I just think that it's not our role to ban people from life or running from council if they may have done something in their young years. And if they pay the price of society, they pay their time. I think it's up to the citizens, the electoral people, to decide whether they want this person in office or not, and not up to us to decide this person can never be a good person again just because they've had an incident with the law. And I think that it doesn't mean to say that they don't have honesty, integrity, and transparency, just because they may have had some record. A lot of people get away their whole life with being honest, being dishonest, and not having these traits that we ask for, but don't never get charged with it. And to me, I just don't think it's our role to be implementing this. I think it's based on person's character, and you have to know the person that you're talking about in these situations. And I just don't feel comfortable putting a blanket forward like this, a resolution forward like this. I wouldn't want this to be in our township, so I'm not suggesting it for any other township. But I respect democracy, and if everyone else votes for it, that's fine. But I just won't be voting for it.
Okay. Councillor Olmsted?
I see your point, Dan. I remember when we ran, there was something to say that you had to say that you didn't have a criminal record. But I don't remember clearly. I was trying to think of my mind for that. And I understand your reservations, Dan. I don't know. Now I'm on the fence. Thanks. I don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a couple things in here about the individual not applying to the RCMP to have their record expunged. And I realize that this is kind of for major type things. It's not for drinking underage, all right? Liquor in place other than your residence, it's not that type of thing. These are criminal acts. And maybe you can say, okay, like well, that was back when they were 25, okay, or 30, depending how old you are now. But it was against the law then when it was done, right? So it was a criminal offense. So that's all I got to say on it. But I'm going to call to a vote and see how we proceed with it.
Well, Sandy wanted to say something. She had her hand up.
I missed that one. Go ahead, please.
Oh, Sandy wanted to say something because she had her hand up.
I just wanted to mention that at any time, if you're going to run for office or for a position like this, you would take into consideration your past, and it would be prudent that you would go and apply for a pardon. Or, I mean, I would hate to think that something would get out later on, and then it would be kind of people like to talk. People like to create more out of certain things. I mean, I just think it's important that people who run are of certain character also, Dan, but I think if they've done something that was pretty heinous, that they shouldn't be allowed to run. That's just my point of view. That's all.
Well, thank you. I'm not on the fence anymore.
Okay, I'm going to call this to a vote. Councillor Cross, do you vote to move this forward? Yes or no?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, are you going to vote yes or no to accept this?
No.
No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Olmsted, are you going to vote yes or no to accept this?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to vote yes as well. Okay? And I do understand what you're saying, Councillor Maxwell. I just...
Oh, no problem. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a report from the Clerk Treasurer to Council 2021 CT24, and it's a boundary road agreement with Papineau Cameron. All right. Everyone had a chance to look at over the last few days, I guess. Any comments in there? It's kind of like, this is what we're proposing.
I just
Councillor
wondered
Cross?
why it came up. I'm sorry.
Okay. We'll go with Councillor Olmsted then. Go ahead, please.
I just wondered why it came up. Did something happen that precipitated this?
I'm not sure why it came up. I know there's been some negotiations about helping one another. Cindy?
Yes, there was a request for a driveway entrance and a culvert, and it's on the Papineau side of the road, but on the portion of the road that Calvin takes care of. And so a discussion between Papineau and us ensued as to whose responsibility it was to install the culvert. That's how this came about.
So it wasn't, it was a friendly conversation. That's all I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just whose responsibility is it, and it's not written down anywhere because this has always been a verbal agreement, and so that's
Right.
why we decided to make it in writing.
Okay, as long as it was amicable. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Anything, Dan?
No, it looks good. No comment.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Cross?
No, it looks good.
Okay, I agree. Good work putting this together, Cindy or whoever did. Probably you, I guess.
It
Everything
was a
takes
combination.
work, so,
Chris, myself, the CAO from Papineau Cameron, and the road superintendent from Papineau Cameron.
okay. Well, that's good. All right. Next item here is the council management discussion, 2021 preliminary municipal budget. Budgets are always so much fun. We had a preliminary budget provided to us in our council package last week. I'm thinking everyone probably had a chance to go through it. Sometimes these things are a little difficult to understand. I know the first year I was having difficulty understanding what was a revenue and what was an expense, so that really messed me up. I got that figured out now. Any discussion on anything in here? Are we going to go through line by line, Cindy?
If that's what council would like, sure.
Is that what everyone would like, or?
I'd be okay with section by section. I'd be okay with section by section or page by page.
Section, okay.
It would take a long
Is that
time.
okay with? Okay, is that okay with you, Councillor Cross?
Yes.
Councillor Olmsted?
Yes.
Okay. So are you going to lead the discussion, Cindy?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
I knew you were just waiting for this, right?
The first section is in regards to taxation. So this block, the first block, general taxation and general levy, is not filled in because we have to fill in the rest of it before I can know what that is going to be in that particular block. Same with, these are unknowns. The supplementary and the payments in lieu are unknowns at this point. The payments in lieu are what the government pays us, and we don't know that until they pay us. So unfortunately, I can't budget for those. And the supplementaries, it all depends on what people do throughout the course of the year, whether they add a garage to their property or an addition on their house or whatever. Those types of things we can't budget for. So unfortunately, that's why most of this section is empty.
Okay.
Stop me if anybody has any questions, okay? So under these grants, under the Ontario conditional grants, so the OOMP, which is something that we get every single year, is slowly declining, as you can see from the description. This year it's down 0.78% from last year. But the amount that we're getting from the from the provincial government to help us with things that they have downloaded to the municipal government, this year the amount they've allotted to us is $191,000. Under infrastructure grants, the reason there's $100,000 there is this year we had planned to replace some guardrails on 3 different bridges. It's the past 2 bridge studies have indicated that these guardrails are in need of dire repair and replacement. So it was decided last year that we would use the OSIF grant money from 2020 and 2021 to pay for these new guardrails to be installed. So that's where that $100,000 comes from. So under the next section, the fire grants. So this is just an estimated amount that we are going to get in terms of MTO calls and M&R calls. Unfortunately, again, it's a bit of an estimate. Well, not a bit of. It is an estimate because we can't know for sure how many calls there's going to be. The wildlife compensation, we've already had 1 claim. Typically, we only have 1 claim per year, so that's the amount that I've put in here. Public library is the same every year. We apply for a grant. The Federal, provincial government grants, you'll notice that I have put amounts in for what we're going to get for gas tax, et cetera, but because we're not actually using this funding, it's not put into the budget. The only thing that I have put into the budget is the $20,000 plus the $21,256 that we received for COVID money. So that's where that comes from. And the drainage, I've explained there where that information is coming from. We apply for grants from OMAFRA to get replacement costs for our drainage superintendent and potentially any drainage cleanout that we need to do throughout the spring and summer. There is no POA revenue, or at least it's not been budgeted this year because it's been slowly declining over the years. And the last POA meeting that I went to, they indicated that soon, if not this year, probably next year, we're actually probably going to have to pay instead of receiving money from these costs because of the changes that have taken place and the costs associated with them. So at this point, I haven't budgeted anything for those. Cemetery revenue and recreation revenue is the same every year. Again, it's just an estimate of how many people buy plots or use the recreation facilities, and based on the fact that we're still in COVID, I don't think we're going to have all that much. Building permits, again, I spoke with our CBO, Shane Conrad, and this is based on an estimate over the past few years. It's the same as last year. General government revenue, this comes from, we have an annual agreement with Spectrum for the tower up at the landfill. Any NSF checks, if a film company decides to come and rent our facilities again, those types of things, that's where that information comes from. The fire department revenue grant, so this is a combination of $5,000 that we received from TransCanada grant and also the TPON grant that council just approved at the last meeting for online training. That's where that information comes from, or that funding comes from, excuse me. The fire department agreements, those are the agreements that we have with those that live in Lauder for fire protection. The credits are just essentially ins and outs, what we're using between, it's a interdepartmental use of time and equipment, so that's where those estimates come from. Aggregate revenues, we get a certain amount of money every year from the government. It's averaged over the past 6 years. Landfill site revenue, this is any revenue that we get. This is lower than it has been in the past because the CEC requested that we reduce their fees. So this year, all they're paying for is the tipping fees in terms of the landfill. And it was for the fire department, the agreed upon fee was cut in half, so that's why it's less this year. Plus any other landfill fees like fridges, freezers, all that kind of stuff that comes into the landfill. So that's self-explanatory there. Recycling revenue, again, that's information that, funding that we would get from Stewardship Ontario, but this is actually going to disappear once in between 2023 and 2025, I believe it is, when the producers start taking over. We're no longer going to get this funding. And the rest of it's just sort of self-explanatory. Penalties and interest, again, this is just an estimate of what we're going to receive in penalties and interest per year. Excuse me, investment income, that's significantly lower because interest rates are also lower. we're transferring from reserves for landfill because there's a monitoring report due in 2021. Line item 59 is the surplus from last year, and I also included a sheet of how we're suggesting that we distribute the surplus from last year. So that's a discussion that we can have as well. And then $5,000, actually, I noticed just before we went live to this meeting that I hadn't changed the description. I had put in here that we transfer $5,000, and originally I had put that it was for the server. Excuse me, that was an error on my part. That's what we did a couple of years ago. Last year it was computers. The year before that it was servers. This year we need to update our website to make sure that it's AODA compliant, and it's going to cost approximately $5,000. So I'm recommending that we transfer $5,000 out of the working fund reserves, which actually comes from monies left over from that modernization grant that we received in 2019. There was still some funds left over from that grant, so that's where I'm getting this $5,000 from. So that's the revenues. Do you want to talk about the surplus now before we go into expenditures, or do you want to continue with expenditures?
One question on the, I have a question. With regards to the, I think I saw in our news, information letter said we got 5,000 from the cannabis grant that the government gave us. It showed that there's a message in it. There was a letter in there saying that we got another 5,000. Is that in the budget?
I mentioned it under the provincial and federal government grants here in this section here.
Okay. I'm
but
sorry.
Because it's not being spent, it's not in the dollar value, in the $41,000. So unless we're using the money, we don't put it in the budget. I make note of it so that it's there, so that council is aware of it. But because we're not actually using the funding, and it has very specific, like we've received so far, I think it's $15,000 in total. It has to be used for specific things. So unless we're going to use it for those specific things, unfortunately, we don't put it into the budget. We just make record of it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
So do you want to discuss the leftovers, or what do you call it?
Surplus?
Yeah, surplus. We might as well do that now and get it done with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those enclosed at the very back of the package.
Okay, so typically every year, any of the monies that are received for the fire department in donations, in MTO calls, and the fire agreements are transferred into reserves. And so this year, the total for that amount was $15,029. It's also being recommended by staff that an extra $10,000 be transferred into reserves for a new fire truck. In the roads department, again, it's typical that we put $30,000, transfer that into reserves. We depleted, or very closely depleted, the roads reserves when we purchased the grader. So we need to build that back up. So I'm recommending that we continue that behavior and put $30,000 into reserves. The recreation department, this is new this year. Jacob is recommending that in order to build up a capital building maintenance and equipment replacement reserve. So, for instance, if we need to purchase a new snowblower or a new tractor or a new roof for the hall or, you know, siding or something like that, we have money in reserves to be able to purchase those types of things. And right at the moment, because this is a new thing, the recommendation is $5,000 to be transferred to reserves. Every year, every 5 years, the server needs to be replaced. So the computer server needs to be replaced. So again, it's a typical thing to put $5,000 away because the approximate cost of a new server is $20,000. Landfill, it's recommended that this year that we start to put some money aside for landfill closure costs. So this year we're recommending $20,000 go into reserves. Mattawa Seniors Home, that for the past approximately 3 years, I believe it is, we've put money into reserves to go towards the payment that we're going to have to make sometime in the near future, hopefully, when Castle Home has been decided, to be able to pay for what we owe for the Mattawa Seniors Home. So again, that goes into reserves. And last year it was discussed that we start putting money aside for payment in the event there's injured animals and we need to take them to the vet. So we start, excuse me, we start to build up a reserve for those types of costs. So that's what the $1,500 for in terms of animal control reserve is. So that brings a total of $109,665 going into reserves for those various departments, leaving a balance of $35,571.03 to help offset the taxation.
Very well done. All good.
I think Ian's mic is off.
Yeah, mine is, sorry. Any questions on that, Sandy?
It looks really good to me. I like the fact that we're, you know, planning ahead. The numbers they're good.
Okay. Dan, any comments?
The Mattawa Senior Home, it was before my time. I guess we agreed to that agreement. I'm just curious if that agreement has changed over time, because I know they did get a lot of extra funding from the provincial government. And is their funding model still the same as they originally proposed when they were proposing the project? I think it's just, to me, we can't be paying for two nursing homes at once. We have to be one or the other, and like that has to be understood in the. We shouldn't be in the nursing home business, as far as I'm concerned, as a municipality. Like that can either be run privately or by the province. But that's just, you know, I was curious on what that agreement is. Or it was before my time. I don't remember. I know everybody was gung ho to give money when we didn't have one, but a lot of money came from different areas. And I think I was just wondering if the funding plan has changed over time, because they did give a big injection of provincial money a couple of times. I remember it being announced.
It's not that the municipality is in the senior home business. It's that we have to support one, okay? Yeah. Whether it be Castle Home or Algonquin. And up until this time, we haven't had to pay for Algonquin because we're still involved in Castle Home. Yeah. And kind of that's how that was. And way back a long time ago, when we're meeting to discuss the Algonquin nursing home, we did discuss funding, but there was no actual amount at that time because we didn't know what the cost was going to be.
Okay.
That answer your question?
It has. Have we put this aside every year for the last 3 years? So do we almost have like 75? Over 7,000 in reserve then for the nursing home? Would that be correct?
3 years would be 59, right? So.
I will have to investigate to confirm it's 3 years, but I believe it's the past 3 years. I can confirm that, though.
Okay.
Any questions, Heather?
No, I like where it got spread out. It was very good, very good. Good planning.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Cindy. Can you move on to the rest of the budget now, please?
Okay, would council like to, does council have any questions excuse me, in regards to the board changes? That was also a chart that was included. I mean, there's not much we can do about any of these, but just in case anybody had any questions, I just thought I'd mention it now. In all honesty, they've gone down this year from last year, so that's not a bad thing. So not by much, but still.
Down is better.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that trend's going to continue, though.
No.
We don't know what the government's going to do to us yet either, so, from COVID.
Okay, if there's no questions, then I'll move on. Okay, in terms of expenditure, so for council, this year I allotted for 12 special meetings, 6 of them being strategic plan meetings because we have a strategic plan every second month, plus 6 extra special meetings. We have already had 3 special meetings, 2 in March and 1 in February. So that leaves 3 left for the rest of the year. If council's in agreement, we can leave it at that. If they think it needs to be increased, please let me know. You'll also notice that mileage, meals, and miscellaneous expenses has increased from last year to this year. This includes the training for council, the go forward strategy that was agreed to. So again, this is the expenditure, so we have to pay for it, but bear in mind that Mayor Pennell has also generously donated a certain amount of money to go towards this. So that would have been included in the revenues coming in. Okay, so that offsets some of that cost, but it still has to be included here. And the rest of it is approximately the same as last year. Any questions about council, or do you want to change anything?
I found out that there are some meetings that we attend that are remunerated and some that aren't. I happen to be involved in the ones that aren't, but the going to the ministry, or for the North Bay, Mattawa Conservation Authority, there's a nominal, I think is it Castle Home, you got paid, but for the ad hoc, or you don't. So I don't know what anybody else thinks about that. I was the only one that wasn't paid on the VMOTs out of the councillors. Everybody else got paid to councillor meetings. And I thought, oh, so maybe moving forward, so the next council knows that they'll get paid for it. I don't know what you think about it.
Councilor Maxwell?
I agree with Heather that I think that any meeting that you are asked to go to, there should be remuneration involved. I think that the fee of 150 is a bit too high for council meetings, but 75 is reasonable to give up a night and to include your travel in that. I think, 75 for any meeting that that someone has to attend, there should be a remuneration for it. I don't believe that council is a volunteer position, and that there should be compensated for when you have to travel and you have to give up an evening. But there's probably something that we can put in when we review the terms of council. I think at the end of our term, we do that next year, I believe. We look at how we are remunerated. So it's probably a consideration then.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
There is some savings too that we were only offering as a three-member council right now, so that is saving us some money in this area. I mean, it's not a lot, but depending on when our new councillor comes on, it's already been 2 months, I think, so it does add up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, you want to move on, Cindy, please?
Okay. So in order to provide council with a little bit better idea of what salaries would cost, CPP, WSIB, all those types of costs, instead of just including what was budgeted for last year, I included a 3% discount, not discount, sorry, 3% increase in all of the wages. That's just an estimate. It's not been decided by council. I'm fully aware of that. It's just so that council would have an idea of what increased costs would be in the event of an increase for salaries. Bearing in mind that we did not receive an increase last year because of COVID. So that's where the increases all lie for any of the salaries that are going to be looked at in any of these departments, as well as the increased costs for WSIB and CPP. Many of the costs remain the same. Some things that I want to highlight in terms of administration. So under telephone and fax, the costs have gone up because we're using the phones and stuff more, long distance calls, Zoom calls, conference calls, all that kind of stuff. So that's why there's a slight increase here for telephone and fax. I put the seminars, workshops, and training back up. Previously, it had been at a level of $3,000 for training for administration, but last year we reduced it to $1,500, again, to try and save costs for COVID. The reason I put it back up is I am still taking the courses from AMCTO, but this year there will also be elections training, which typically costs around $1,000. That will take place in the fall. So that's why I've put the value back up for seminars, workshops, and training. Miscellaneous miscellaneous and memberships. The reason there's an increased cost in that section is because we agreed to the HR policies to be the 30, however many HR policies to be prepared by E4M and their HR specialists. I estimated a cost of $5,000. The last time I spoke to E4M, they had, I believe it was 7 municipalities included. They're still hoping to get the full 10. They still had, they were waiting to hear from 2 other municipalities plus ours, assuming that we were the quote-unquote 10th municipality that they were going to work with. So this may be reduced, but in the event that they didn't, I wanted to make sure that there was a little bit of a buffer there. So that's why I put the cost at $5,000. Under computer expenses, you'll notice that the costs have increased as well. The reason for this is, well, our support costs, they go up annually. Plus, there is some cyber security measures that our IT person thinks that we need to do in order to better protect ourselves. Remember, a couple of years ago, we did get hacked for ransomware. So we can purchase cybersecurity insurance, but based on my conversations with our IT professional, right now he feels the money would be better spent. Not that insurance is not a good thing, it's just he thinks that the money would be better spent increasing our cybersecurity, which he estimates to be approximately $5,000, will cost us approximately $5,000. So that's why the increase is there. The copier. So this year, our lease on our copier expires. So we have to get a new one because we use the copier on a daily basis. The new agreement actually costs a little bit more per month in terms of the monthly fee that we pay. It's right now $109 per month, not including, plus HST. And it will go up to something like $156 per month. However, with the amount of copies that we're going through right at the moment, because our flyers are significantly larger, our council packages are significantly larger, et cetera, we'll actually be saving money overall because we do have to pay for in the lease agreement, we're allowed a certain amount of copies. If we go over those copies, that amount of copies, which we have been doing for the past year and a bit, we have to pay 5 to, depending on if it's color, it could be 21 cents over, like per copy over those amounts. So with the amount of copies that we're doing right now, this new agreement, they've taken into consideration the amount of copies that we're doing, and so this would actually probably save us money overall. And it's a better machine, and it's a brand new machine, and it's not going to break down the way this one is starting to, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why there's a slight increase to account for the copies and to account for the slight increase in the monthly fee for the copier. And capital costs. So we need upgrades to our website, as I mentioned previously, where $5,000, I allotted $5,000 in revenues to being transferred from reserves, but there are many things that we can do here. So there's the AODA compliance, and we need to have that done because technically it was supposed to be done as of January the 1st, and so we're behind in that regard. But there are other things that we can do to the website to make it more modern. For example, many people, because of COVID-19, would like to be able to pay online on our website, not using the credit card function that we currently have, because currently that function charges a 3% surcharge. So I've contacted the people that make our website, and they have a different way of doing it, which people could pay by credit or debit, which is also something that a lot of constituents have been asking for, to be able to pay by debit. And currently we don't have a debit machine in the municipal office. So it's another way that we can provide the people, especially out-of-town people, a way to pay their taxes, a way to pay their building permits, whatever other things that they have to pay. There's that. There's also modernization in terms of we can modernize our agendas So there are two different kinds of software that many municipalities use that make it much easier to put together agendas. Essentially, I understand that this would make my life easier for the most part. I would essentially prepare something, drag and drop it into this software, and it builds the agenda essentially for me. So it's a time savings for me. Eventually, it would be cost savings because I could spend that time that I spend on preparing agendas on something else, those types of things. We've also discussed having tablets for council. So I've allotted $10,000 here just as a dollar figure, but again, these are questions to council, what they want to spend money, if they want to spend money on any of these capital costs. So these are all things that have been suggested.
Can I ask a question?
Approximately it for administration.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
In this budget, is there any money put aside for when COVID is over and we go back to having meetings at the hall for camera equipment and sound equipment so that we can continue to broadcast?
The camera for that has already been purchased. It was purchased last year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to pass this over to Chief Maxwell, and he can go over the fire department section. Dean, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead. Can you hear me?
Do you want to go through this section for the budget in terms of expenditures?
If there's any questions, maybe I can answer the questions as we go through it.
Okay, I'll go through it.
Because Jacob pretty well put most of the budgets together, I just give him the numbers and stuff. So if there's lines where there is questions, I can pretty well tell you what's going on with the line or what it's for or whatever.
Okay, I'll give you an overview then.
If you don't mind.
For salaries and benefits, it's been included in the budget that the points are increased by $2,500, similar to what it was in 2020.
What is that?
I can't explain these things, but the fire department has to explain these things. So yeah. Do you want to explain 102 and 103?
So we did for the salary for the points. What we did is broke it up into $2,500. So the first half of the pay would be $1,000 increase to the points, and the second half would be $1,000, and then we added $500 into the shares program. In the bottom here it says medical supplies, fire hall supplies, firefighters gear and safety equipment. So this is medical supplies. They're all of like blankets, anything we use on medical calls that we do. Some masks, like everything else, medical stuff has a lifetime supply. Like it only is good for 5 years. Some of the breathing masks for the oxygen administration, stuff like that. So we usually have a budget in there around $600 worth of stuff to about every year we kind of buy just a little bit every time, and just keep switching it out so it's up to standards. Fire hall supplies, so that's our pop and water that we have in the fire hall. And then anything else like paper towels, toilet paper, yada, 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 et cetera, for that stuff. So with that. And then firefighter gear and safety is this is I believe it's gloves and stuff like that. It's to be like safety glasses and all. I'm not really actually sure. Like I said, Jacob, is Jacob here? Jacob probably would. We do have a breakdown of this.
Yes, I am here.
Yeah. So this line here, what was all in this line? Do you remember, Jacob? Or?
So line 101, materials and supplies included medical supplies, as you went over, boots, gas for the small engines, bunker gear cleaning, labeling of equipment and stickers, bunker gear repairs, bunker gear alterations, safety glasses, winter gear, the new hoods that give the firefighters much better protection from the new carcinogens that are out with all the plastics being used in products. There's flashes, firefighter gloves, Bama socks, and then we've also included some miscellaneous supplies for the fire hall, such as batteries, cleaning supplies, small tool purchases. For line 102, vehicle expenditures, that includes all of the gas for the fire apparatus, the diesel, the recertification of the vehicles, the oil changes to the vehicles, pump testing, hose wrenches, traffic cones, wands, signs. Now, some of the things to draw your attention to is this year we proposed the purchase of another Scott's pack. It's a foam cannon to be attached on a second fire truck, a PT2, which has a larger water volume, which is much more effective in an automotive fire. We also added a Halligan bar to be placed on pumper. It's sort of the Swiss Army knife of the firefighter gear. You can use it on just about every call, and quite often when we're on an auto fire, we don't have the rescue van there, we have the pumper truck there, and we don't have that tool with us, and we're needing. We've also added foam, AFFF, or is what it used to be called. It now has a new name. I'm not 100% sure of it, but I do know that there should be a new jug coming in. To give the pricing idea of a jug, it's on the accounts payable, the Tuesday printout, because we have had a couple auto fires. So we've used up all of our old foam supply stocks. This stuff really helps with putting out the auto X fires much quicker. The foam just smothers the fire, and you're not trying to cool it down with the water. Scene lights is another thing that we've put in. And then this also includes the hydraulic equipment. The auto extrication equipment is due for servicing this year. And we have put in another trash pump or transfer pump this year, as one of our older pumps is starting to age and not performing as well as it should be. WSIB is a number that is based off the wages. Miscellaneous, that includes the firefighter appreciation, the awards for the firefighters, careers, miscellaneous food expenses, such as if we have a call that's later in the evening or a long call, and we get some food for the guys that are out there on the scene, and other non-specific items. Heating this year, we were actually able to bring it down. We're starting to get a better idea of where our heating cost is based on the new propane furnace that's in there. Hydro has also come down some too. Again, I didn't want to drop it down to the actual cost because we had a lot of reductions because of the COVID. I didn't want to cut it too much and have us wind up being under at the end of the year. Internal equipment charges, I don't anticipate any this year. CPP and CUI is based off of numbers that Cindy provides me. The group insurance, there's nothing in that line this year. Capital expenditures, this year we've included 2 sets of bunker gear, which we do every year. The gas bump detector tests station, gas detector bump test station, which we received that funding for. We have to show the purchase of it in one line. There's the funding that comes in through revenue somewhere else that offsets a large portion of that. And then we have forestry hose and a tack line to be purchased this year. Transfer to reserves. That is the money that Cindy was talking about previously in the surplus, where it's 15,000 is based off of the revenue generated from the fire department, and an additional 10,000 is recommended to go into that to bring us to a total of 25,000 to eventually go to the purchase of a new fire truck. Building maintenance has stayed the same. Breathing air and apparatus has gone up some this year. We do have a very large year this year. I believe we had 12 of the small bottles that were due for testing and 4 of our Cascade system bottles that are due for purchasing. And in this line, it also includes, I believe, some costing for modernizing our Cascade system as it's becoming outdated, and we're trying to keep up with the new technology so that it doesn't become obsolete on us. So we're trying to take small steps at that each year to reduce the overall cost. Communication, that includes all of our radios, our dispatching, the licensing fee for the radios. Training, this year we do have that grant that will offset the cost of this training, so there is a revenue coming in. Fire prevention, we've increased by $200 this year. We would like to start promoting more combination carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, instead of just providing people with a smoke detector, as their carbon monoxide calls have been increasing quite significantly over the last few years. M&R agreement is the same. The insurance is a number that's provided to me by Cindy. The truck payment is the same year over year, and it's to be will be completed in 2025. And the interest for the truck is the last line. Are there any questions about any specifics on those lines? Yes, Councilor Maxwell.
Maxwell?
I find that it's really important that our fire department be well equipped and everything, but I find the budget is too high for the department overall. But the increase for the year is, I don't know, it's like 25,000. It's like 20%, something like that. Maybe 18-20% increase in their budget, and I think we have to stay within a certain area. I mean, we can't think of our taxpayers as being at the bottom of this pit of money. We have to stay within a certain increase every year, and it can't be in the 18% increase for department. I think it has to come down to like at least 10% increase. So there's lots of areas that I could suggest, but maybe I would suggest that they go back and look at the budget and bring it into a more reasonable increase. We just can't fund everything. We can't do a big wish list for everybody. It has to be within reason. And I think it's just a bit there's too much money, too big of an increase for that department overall.
Anything, Heather?
I kind of agree, but it's our only revenue source. I mean, the only thing that generates revenue for us is the fire department independently, right? So we need to be the best of the best. I kind of agree, maybe 20% is too high, but maybe 15% would be more palatable. That's all.
If there's a proposal, that's like where we first started off. We did cut lots last year. I know you're looking at the numbers, but we cut lots last year, and that's kind of where it put us this year. And I know we discussed It was talked about why we shouldn't cut taxes down to this much. Every time we do put stuff off, and our stuff is all, because it's all about safety and mandated. Everything, like lots of stuff is mandated. But for sure, I can cut some stuff and work it out, but that just means we do without, right? So give me an idea of what you're looking at, like number wise.
I've got about 4 or 5 check marks in that area. It's just
What area? Be specific.
Line 100, for example. We're giving the. I know it's always hard to talk about raises, but with COVID, the firefighters aren't asking to do as much work. They're not meeting regularly. A lot of them don't have meetings. They're not giving up as many nights as they would have in our normal times. So, like quite a bit this last year, there's no meetings, and right now we're in a no meeting situation. So we're not asking to drive out and give a night up like we used to be. I think the training is less. There's a lot less training going on with the COVID thing. So putting raises in there again this year is. So I don't think that people sign up. You don't have to pay our. Not that they don't have to, but it's not expected that they have to make a minimum wage on the fire department. It's a volunteer position, and we have to keep it volunteer. Otherwise, it won't be affordable for our township if we keep upping the salaries and making it so that it's a position, a working position. Just little things like painting the hall, $1,600 for painting the interior of the hall, and roof repairs. I think we had a new roof put on. So there's a big. It's only $1,600, but it's still like together with everything. It puts the increase up quite a bit, and I just think we have to be fair to our taxpayers and can't ask them to pay 20% increase in taxes this year. So every department has to stay within reason. Especially employees are going to be looking for wage increases as well, and so the more like we load onto the budget, the less money there is for everything. That's how I feel about it. Like there's the vehicle like line looks like 102 maybe 102 or 103. I'm not sure which line that goes under, but there's an increase there of $5,000 from the budget last year. Every line seems to be increased a lot, and we have to try to stay within our means a little bit as well and prioritize what we need. The picnic the appreciation day, it's up to 6,000 almost. It was 5,000 last year, and that was a big discussion for a while whether we need to buy all the guys jackets or not. I think they would more appreciate good equipment and good training. Anyways, I know it's a gym of our township, and it's hard to. I don't want to criticize the fire department anyway, but the budget has to come in line with reasonable expenditures, like all the budgets in the township, all the departments. I don't know how anyone else feels, but I'd like to hear how other councillors feel about that.
Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't think they're asking exorbitant amounts of money. We did kind of rip everybody off last year. But I think we're still maintaining that we're not increasing. Like just looking at the general overall budget, I didn't find anything that really stuck out at me. Maybe not new jackets, but I mean, that kind of makes them look professional when they're out too. Yeah, that's it.
Councillor Croft?
I think Mr. Maxwell had a lot of good points made. I definitely wouldn't want to be too scrimpy when it comes to our equipment for sure. I feel that it's either or. Either you get an increase in the pay, or you take the appreciation meal. I don't think having both right now is, especially with COVID. I think there's other ways going around it. I think there is room definitely to tighten it up just a bit. But I mean, Heather was right as well. We did slash a lot last year as well. So it's to find that equal medium, I think is important.
I had lines 101 and 105 highlighted as well, as I thought they were a little excessive.
Can you put it up, Cindy, the screen, so I can see what you're talking about, 105 and 101? 105.
I don't have any problem with buying gear if it's required, because we want to keep everybody safe, right? But those two lines seemed a little high for me.
Dean, I have a question for you. Any of your equipment never get used? If that's so, what happens with it if there's an expiry date on it?
Or what do you mean if our equipment never gets used? Like a mask, like let's just say you use an oxygen mask. We usually end up throwing it out. It's like this stuff, lots of times it's like our bunker gear is like every 10 years we got we buy like our frontline guys new gear every 10 years, and that's NFP standard. We do keep some of the gear around. We can only keep so much around. And then we do use it for the guys that don't go inside, interior attacks, guys that just drive trucks, stuff like that. And same with like fire hose. Lots of times we usually end up wearing it out before it comes to the 10-year span, just so you get a cut or something in it. We end up having to discard it. But like stuff like the BAs, we still have the old BAs here. We were lucky last year, we sold our old MSAs to Papineau. So we try to, sell stuff that is still as good, but most of the time when it comes to the expiry, nobody else wants it. Like we have Cascade bottles here right now that are pretty well obsolete, and we can't get nothing for them. I don't know what to do with them yet. That's what Jacob was talking about a while ago, upgrading our Cascade system, because the new standard they're working towards is going to be like 1 hour bottles. The guys will have a 1 hour bottle instead of a half-hour bottle. So we're just trying to stay ahead of stuff like that, work towards it, upgrading it a little bit at a time rather than getting hit all at once. So, so the 2 lines you marked on, I'll work on those. And I know 105 is a little bit different. I think we had, it doesn't show the breakdown, but maybe I'll break it down, line 105 for you so you can see what we allowed for last year. I know we talked about this line lots, and I kind of feel like, I know I discussed how important that line was, because it is depreciation for the guys, and we still end up cutting it in the end somehow. I don't know how we ended up around there, but we cut that by $1,500 last year. So I pretty well put it back to where it was last year, but I'll give a better breakdown on it on the next run. And then we'll probably, the points thing, will work. I'll probably just take that out if you want. If that's the way you feel about that. That's probably the way I'm leaning towards. Our guys are we are the lowest paid fire department on this area. It's one thing just to keep in mind. I know Papineau has a hard time with Mattawa, because Mattawa is paying their guys lots right now, but they're barely making minimum wage right now, and that's what we're trying to do, pay our guys minimum wage when we do show up. So
Okay, thank you.
May I make a comment, Mayor Powell?
Okay, please.
When you're viewing the bottom line number for the fire department, you also need to factor in that we did receive grants and funding in there of almost $10,000. That would actually take us to about a 12% increase on that line as it sits, not an 18%.
No, it's not a 12% increase. Okay, the increase is what the increase is. It's just you got a grant. go towards it, which, you know, it's still the same increase.
Yeah, no, it is definitely the increase there. I was just trying to point out that we did receive some funding that helps to offset what we're asking the taxpayers for in this department.
Right? I think we all, most of us thought we could tighten it up a little bit there, anyway. Anything else from Jacob or Dean?
I have no further comments.
Dean?
You want to see, like, I kind of would like to see, understand what, I know you want to see cuts, but like you're usually after a number. What are you looking to save? Like, what do you want to save? Because like, I could save it other places. That's what I'm saying. If we need to do that.
If you can save it
Like, are
other
you looking to
places,
save $10,000
already?
What's that?
I'm just saying, if you can save it other places, why aren't you doing that already? I'm not trying to be mean, okay?
No, I know,
Like that.
I know, and you know what? This is an all-in budget, and then we always usually cut lots. So.
So come back with what you absolutely need.
Okay.
That's my thought on it.
Yeah, for sure. We'll I'll work those lines down and bring it down for you.
Thank you. Okay, so can we go on to the community emergency measures?
Essentially, everything has stayed the same in this particular department, even with COVID and slight increases in the amount of time our CEMC required to go to meetings and things like that. We didn't exceed the budget that we'd already put into place, so I've just left it the way it is because COVID is not over yet, so I didn't want to slash anything in the event that we have a fourth wave, heaven forbid. Any questions about CEMC?
No?
Okay. Chris, would you like to go over differences in the roads budget?
Yes, I can.
Pardon me?
Can you hear me okay? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. The first GL is the roads overhead, and all the wages in the roads department go in that first account. Look at the bottom of the page in hardtop maintenance, for example, you see that there's no wages there. And that's just because it's easier to calculate wages in one account. And we get dispersed as we go through the year.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't hear either.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you better now.
Okay. Well, like I said, the wages for all the roads department is in that first GL, 137. If you look down at the bottom of the page at hardtop maintenance, there's no wages there. That's because all the GLs go in the first line 137. So the mileage, vehicle mileage, and the expenses are the same. That's typical. It's been the same for the past quite a few years. Telephone at the garage, that's for the cell phone and the garage phone, and the garage phone is needed for the alarm system. WSIB is basically a cost. Workshops and seminars, try to get a couple courses going on every year. Remember last year I was pushing hard for the wheel end course, and we managed to get that. So I have no specific course that we're looking for, but we try to pick up courses as they come available through Ontario Good Roads or the Michigan Road. make a member and get discounted basically for it. The heating, the fuel, that's in both the sand dome and the public works gas. So the heating in the sand dome is radiant floor heating. We try not to turn it on until we absolutely have to in late December. And as soon as it warms up in mid-March, we were able to turn it off again. So we try to save as much as we can there. The service roads, that's, I believe that's just odds and ends that expenses that we don't really have the GL specific for them. And it's only a small amount that we budget for them.
Starting to have
Sorry,
a
I
hard
can't hear
time
you now.
hearing you again, Chris.
Sorry. Group insurance, lawyers fees, they're all kind of a fixed cost for us. Capital expenditures are what Cindy talked about earlier about the repairs to the bridges and some other funding that will offset those costs. We transfer every year $40,000 to reserves for bridges and road. Also, the bridge study that's needed every 2 years, so we put $1,500 a year away for the $5,000 every 2 years.
I'm getting like every 3 or 4 words.
Okay, if you give me a minute, I'll call in on my phone and
Okay,
I think I'll be better.
thank you.
While we're waiting, how about I go over a different section?
Sure.
Okay. So I skipped a few here because we'll go back to them. But social services, so this includes DSAB, the Mattawa Seniors Home, Castle Home, the staff recruitment, and transfer to reserves. So unfortunately, we can't control what DSAB's levy is. That's what's included here. The Mattawa Seniors Home, I've put money, yes, we talked about putting money away in our reserves as well, but I've put an estimate in here in the event that Castle Home moves forward, fingers crossed, and we can stop paying a levy with Castle Home, etc. We may have to start paying for the Mattawa Seniors Home. So I've estimated that, we might have to pay in June. This I think is going to change because I don't think it's going to happen in June. If anything, it will happen later in the fall or something like that. So I can amend this in the next version, but I still think that we should put maybe something in the event that we have to start paying for the Mattawa Seniors Home this year, in the event that Castle Homes gets rectified and fixed up and we're out of it. So that's where that money comes from. This is the Castle Home levy. This is the last year for or at least I believe, unless they try and start doing it over again. This is the last year for the doctor recruitment, and then this is the value for transfer to reserves from the Mattawa Seniors Home that I have already mentioned. So that's social services. Any member of council have a question in that regard?
No.
Okay. While we're still waiting for Chris, I will go over planning and development. So we do not have, we do have a CEO, but he's employed with Papineau Cameron, so that's why there's no salary here. His salary is included in the nope, sorry, I'm talking about the wrong department here. I'll go to building here. I'm talking about building. So his salary is in this section. So building services, Papineau Cameron. So that's what this is in that regard. Our portion of his salary is calculated in this section. Everything else has essentially remained the same. His mileage, a seminar, typically his new courses cost $700. That's why that's in there. Any legal fees that might be incurred, and insurance. So that's the building department's very short and sweet and simple. Any questions about building?
So does he take courses every year?
No, not necessarily. But in order for him to remain up to date with the building code, if a course is available or something, then he should attend it so that he's up to date on the code. So that's why $700 is budgeted for him. The cost would be split between the 3 municipalities. We wouldn't have to pay the entire thing, but this would be our portion for it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Chris, I think you're with us. Is that correct?
Yes, I hope so.
Much better. Okay, let's go back.
Okay, you can hear me okay now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I think we're at line 151. And just talking about the bridge study, we put money away every year for a bridge study every second year, which is approximately $5,000. The building maintenance is basically greasing the doors and cleaning the furnace and stuff like that in the garage. Small tools, budgeted the same as last year. Anything that we need to replace, or grinders or whatever gets wore out or broken. Office and shop expenses are our radio license, paint, oxygen, our cylinder lease for our torches, plow blades, grader blades, etc. like that. It's a fairly pricey amount, but it's all stuff we use and wear out on a daily basis. The grader interest on the purchase of our new grader, it's a fixed cost, and along with the payment. And not sure just exactly when that final payment will be done, but it's coming up. Go down to hardtop maintenance. Every year we buy one load of cold mix for patching the main road, and we buy a new set of brushes for our sweeper. So that's a combination of those two. In ditching, we budgeted the same amount as last year, and we hope to be able to do that again this year. We also have $500 in there for basically sediment control, straw, filter cloth, wooden stakes, paint, etc. Gravel patching was the same as last year again. We don't know what our prices are going to be. I understand that they're supposed to start crushing in the pit soon, but nothing's happening there yet, and we may have to reach out further for our annual hay gravel this year. The grading, as I said before, all the wages are in the first GL, so as the year goes by, we apply the grader wages to each of these accounts. The dust layer, which is what we usually buy, is Dustmaster 20, and I expect it to go up probably 1 cent per liter this year. We buy 96,000 liters of Dustmaster 20, and there's just a slight increase in that. The gravel resurfacing is again our gravel that we buy annually. We usually budget $30,000 for that, and depending on cost, as to how many tons we can actually put on the roads. And with our 2 township trucks, we ended up doing all of that last year with our 2 trucks. Safety devices is basically signs that we purchase, and if you remember at the last council meeting, I purchased $2,500 of new marker cones and some barricades shortly after we had that big flood, or that a lot of washouts, and I found that we didn't have quite enough signs. We used up all the signs we had, and then I also bought some yellow flashing amber lights for in case we have a closure. So I doubled up on those signs. I think we have about 50 in total now. It also includes the railway light crossings on Boundary Road. Every 3 months we pay a certain fee there. Bridges and culverts are basically our annual culverts that we replace. We do probably around 10 new culverts, cross culverts in the roads, and some entrance culverts throughout the year. So the services on this one, it seems like it's mainly for permits and something we do every year, and I can't really explain it right now. Roadside maintenance is our mechanical brushing. We had taken that out last year, and I put it back in, and this is one place where we could, again, be removed from the brushing. And it's usually a hired contractor that we get to go around every year and keeps up on the brush on the side of our roads. Also, the grass cutting, we cut that out last year. I put it back in there, but it's also a place where you can take out if it's necessary. On sanding for our winter sand material, I increased it slightly this year just because we had to draw it in from farther away to get a better quality of sand. Plus, I'd like to put as much in the dome as we can. It's nice to have a little bit of a safety factor near the end of March. We didn't run out this year, but it got down to the last couple 100 tons of sand in the dome. Standby wages is just basically our standby wages for weekends for the 3 operators. And so we have our truck expenses. We did have quite a bit of expenses on the older truck last year, and hopefully we won't have as much this year. We did quite a bit of repairs to the engine and the differential and so on and so forth. As the truck gets older, expenses get higher. The DEF fluid, that's new for the new truck and the new grader. It's a diesel exhaust fluid that's added to a separate fuel tank on the new plow truck and the new grader. So that's a little extra expenses plus the fuel for each vehicle. The loader expenses is basically the same thing. We have issues with tires. Every year when we're doing the landfill, we're running over pickle bottles and nails and boards, and it's very hard on tires. We talked about foaming the tires, but once you do that, you're pretty much committed to the tire and the rim, and it's easier to deal with a flat tire on a tire that's on a tubeless tire. The Steam Jenny is basically just 4 bottles of propane. I know we didn't use any this year. It was a good year for culverts not freezing up, I should say. And that's about it, unless you have any questions.
Any questions, Sandy?
Yeah, I want to go back to, where is it? The brushing you were looking into possibly buying an attachment for the loader. Have you found a price for that?
Yeah, I did,
Is the price here for the loader, or is this the price here what you would normally pay somebody to do it?
the price I have in here is just for a contractor to do it. I did look at an attachment for our backhoe, and I found that everything I found so far was kind of what I felt was out of our price range. For example, the attachment was around $36,000, and then there was about another $10,000 additional fee to plumb it to our backhoe, like to the hydraulics and to the quick attach. So I just felt that was too much, and I haven't really found a brusher suitable for what we want to do. That'll do everything, like the grass cutting and the brush cutting. So that's why I just put the $10,000 back in there for the mechanical brushing that we would normally hire a contractor for.
So because it wasn't done last year, do you think that we could go another year without doing it again?
Well, by the end of the year before last, we had pretty much made the complete round in the township. There is definitely a possibility that we could go without that. There is some areas that could use some brushing for sure, but if there's any place to cut in the roads budget, that's where I would cut first.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Councilor Maxwell?
I don't think so. No, it looks good. Don't see anything the question. I like the idea is we may have to come back to some things as we get closer to the final budget. So there are options in there. She mentioned that we could, if we're forced to, we could look at them, but looks good.
Councilor Olmsted?
I know you're looking forward to your retirement, so I wanted to see if there was anywhere we had some money to perhaps rent a truck for our township or lease one, where that could come from. For, you know, we have to prepare, it's only a little bit.
Well, you could use the mileage expense to put towards that.
No, other than that, I just wanted to see if we had some money to buy a truck of our own. That's all. It's good budget.
Good, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, the next section is the environmental services, which is Jacob's department. Jacob, do you want to speak to this, please?
Yes, I can speak to this one. So for 0400 100, I'm going by the account lines. When I'm referring to the section, if the numbers don't line up with the sidelines. So materials and salaries and benefits. That includes the proposed increase that Cindy had mentioned. That's a decrease over last year's budgeted number. For 101 materials and supplies, we've decreased it over last year. We're not getting the gravel, that we have a bit of a stockpile left over from last year. For capping the surface of the landfill, mileage has stayed the same. There's nothing in communications. WSIB as a number that Cindy calculates for us. Workshops and seminars, I've kept it the same as last year, $200. There's a lot more courses that are being available online, so I'm hoping to be able to take advantage of that in some of this. Miscellaneous, that covers our advertising and flyers. It stayed the same as last year. Internal equipment charges, that's the cost of the backhoe, the hourly rate that goes to the roads department for the dump and covers at the landfill. That's based on 4 hours every second week for the dump and cover at about 150 hours a year. Outside services, we're not due for our landfill survey until 2023, so there's nothing in that line this year. CPP and EI is a number that Cindy calculates for us based off the wages. There's nothing in group insurance. Tax write-offs has gone up by $25 this year. There's no capital projects planned for the landfill. This year, we've proposed the $20,000 from surplus be transferred to the reserves of landfill for the future closure of the landfill. Well monitoring this year is a bit more. We have the well monitoring report that will be prepared for us this year. We're also pulling some from the reserves, $2,200 to offset the cost of that. Recycling, that's our hazardous waste depot agreement with North Bay. And once a year, we try and do a run up to the hazardous waste depot to take anything that comes into our landfill that can go to the hazardous waste. The blue box, that's our Miller waste cost. These numbers may change depending how the single stream report comes in. My recommendation when it comes to switching to single stream is to plan it out this year so we could implement it next year. So we actually have numbers and council has the time to think on it, so it's not a rushed decision. And then the next line, there's nothing in that, the landfill pension. And then the compactor. This year, it's an increase because of that repair. We had to send the truck out for servicing that cost us about $1,000, if I remember correctly from the numbers. That's why there's an increase in that line. Are there any questions about environmental services?
Councillor Croft?
I'm a little confused to why line 266 is such a huge difference from 11,000 to 3,000.
266. So materials and supplies. That's because last year we had purchased some sand because we ran out of ditching material to cover with, and we had purchased some gravel to cap over top of the ditching material. So it was a fairly big cost increase last year. We have some material left over from last year, so we won't be needing to purchase that material this year. That's why I've decreased it.
Also, when somebody brings in a fridge for the, and they have to pay for the Freon removal, do they pay the full amount that we get charged?
Yes, that goes into landfill revenue. It's in one spot. This is where it comes out, where we pay that bill.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell?
Looks good. I don't see anything that I can object to.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olmsted?
Oh, good work, Jacob. That's really nice. It's good.
Okay, I agree. Thanks, Jacob.
Jacob, would you like to continue on and do health services or cemetery next?
Yeah, I can do that. So line 100 is the salaries and benefits. That would include the increase that Cindy's proposed for this year. Materials and supplies has stayed the same this year. Mileage expenses has stayed the same as it was last year. WSIB is calculated off of the wages. The health unit is the levy to the municipality. It appears as though it is a decrease this year. Internal equipment charges is the cost if we have to have the backhoe over there to do any work, such as a tree comes down. That offsets the cost of the backhoe itself. Outside services is if we have to have a contractor come out and remove a tree if there's damaged headstones that the township's required to repair. And then CPP is calculated off of wages. Is there any questions for health services?
Anyone? No, thanks, Jacob.
Okay, and we've already gone over social services. So again, Jacob, do you want to go over recreation?
Yeah. So recreation, line 100, salaries and benefits. This is the wages. We've included a student wage back in this year. Materials and supplies has stayed the same. Mileage has stayed the same. The WSIB is calculated off of the wages. Workshops and seminars has stayed the same at 200. Miscellaneous is the same at 200. Hydro has stayed the same. Heating, we've decreased by $1,000 this year as the lines appear to be getting, we're spending a lot less than what we're budgeting. Again, with possible increases in rebates from last year, I didn't want to drop it right down to the number that we had. And we had a milder winter. Internal equipment charges, I don't anticipate any this year. Outside services, I've left some money in there in the event that we have to have an electrician come in or a plumber come in to do any repairs at the hall. The CPP is calculated off of wages. Group insurance is recreation share of the insurance. Capital expenditures. This is where a lot of the projects are proposed. This is where I'd like council to take a look at and see which projects they like or don't like in here. But what I've proposed in here is we have the snowblower that's already been purchased. I'm proposing a furnace for the rink building, new doors for the change rooms and washrooms to make them more efficient and seal it better if we're going to attempt to heat the building better. A new roll-up door for the rink building, again, to make it more efficient, seal better. Some other projects around the hall that to improve our efficiencies would be to update the windows in the community center and a new door on the kitchen in the community center. And then another thing that's been added in here is an air purification for the community center. Some of the reason for the air purification would go along with some of the COVID stuff that we've learned about how the virus is transmitted and preventing that. And I believe it would also make our community center eligible to be a vaccine center. Transfer to reserves is the $5,000 that we talked about for building a fund if we do need to do any repairs to buildings or replace equipment. So it doesn't all have to be raised in the year that the project is completed. Building maintenance is for any repairs in the building. Yeah. The rink and sports center. This is any leveling of the surface in the rink liner, repairs to the boards, I've included some door seal kits for the rink building in here to help make the heating more efficient of the rink building, and our annual inspection of the playground. Then there is next is the Smith Lake boat launch, any repairs or maintenance to the dock, any graveling that may need to be done in the parking area, and lumber and foam for docks. The library is a grant that we receive and pay to the library. The insurance is based off the addition in 2018. The rec committee or CRC postage. There's a question here as to whether or not the rec committee will be stood up this year, as to whether or not we need to include any money in here for that. The water system maintenance includes any repairs to the UV system, the testing of our waters. If we want to get the testing done to prove our well is secure. The next line is rec committee expenses. Again, if there's going to be a rec committee start up this year, that's something
Pretty sure there's
that needs to be budgeted in here. And then the last line is the pension, and that's budgeted in administration. Are there any questions on the recreation budget?
Councillor Olmsted.
Just a comment I can say with pretty much certainty there won't be a rec committee for another year, so you don't have to worry about that. Thank you, though. This was very effective. It's a very good budget.
Councillor Maxwell.
How did you find last year without having a student, and why do you think it is necessary to have one this year? I anticipate that we're not going to be very busy in the recreation area because of COVID, and that is it really wise to even have another employee on hand, which increases the risk of the one person to have to make sure that COVID is followed in. The less people in contact with, the better it is. I just don't know if we need to have a student around the hall this summer. And hiring a student also has become kind of expensive. There's no more substitutes for them anymore, so you're almost paying the same amount as an adult. I've stopped hiring students probably 5 years ago just because there was no incentives. And then the capital, I guess that's discussion for, that's the one question. And then the other line I have is 315, the capital issues. And I can't see us spending too much on capital unless we have some grant coming in or some other sources, but I can't put the $35,000 onto the taxpayer. I don't feel like we could do that without having it coming from another source. And the testing for the water system, I find that one a little high. It's the same as last year, but I think the actual cost this year is only $257. So just wondering why it's cost $15,000 to maintain the water system. It's I know there's testing there, but testing, I just saw the sample test is about $30 for a test. You need about 6 of them, so that's $180. Probably some mileage to take the test in. Maybe it's the UV system that's expected to spend $1,200 on, or?
So we are required by the health unit to do 4 tests a year. The 6th test would be additional tests to prove that it's secure, so a total of 10 tests. The UV system is fairly, if we to replace a sleeve or a bulb, it's about $200 to replace the sleeve, about $200 to replace the bulb. The bulb seems to burn out at least once a year, if not a bit more frequently now that we're on the well system. Plus we're going through a lot more filters. We did not have the time to do the proper steps to do the testing because we were short-staffed last year without the student, and with one of the rec employees going over to the roads during the ditching and graveling season. There was not the time to complete that project. So I propose that back in here again this year. We can remove the additional cost of proving the well secure. It's an optional thing. It's not required by the health unit. It just goes to back up in the event that someone does get sick and they're trying to say it's from our water. We've proved that our well's secure, it's good, and we have this UV system that keeps it good and clean based on the testing that we do.
I think that we should only be doing what the health unit requires us to do. Yeah, so I'm not sure what this proving of the well thing doesn't quite jive with me too much. Whatever the health unit recommends is definitely what we should be doing. With the UV system in place and a new well, I mean, you're testing it to the amount that the health unit's asking to do. So that's all you can do. They're pretty strict on making sure that the water systems are safe in the province. So I don't know. You have to do the proving thing as an option. I never heard of an optional thing above and beyond the what the health unit recommends.
To go on to the capital expenditures, most of the projects that were proposed were geared towards cost savings in the future. Again, they are all optional, with the exception of the snowblower, which council's already approved. And it should also be noted that there will be some costs added into this line for the swimming hole, which are not included at this time. And going back to your comment about the student, because we lose one employee for 4 to 6 weeks during the summer months to assist with the roads department for the ditching and graveling, that's where the student comes in handy, keeping up on the regular maintenance around the community center. Cindy, I guess.
And I also add that if we don't have or we don't budget for students, we'll probably also run into some issues clearing the rink.
Yeah, I see the two separate as the part-time student for the rink and the summer student as two different projects. I think because
we're budgeted in this area, so council can decide what they want the student to do, and we can change the budget accordingly. But I just want to bring that up, that it's our recommendation, my recommendation, that we have a student available to clear the rink in the winter time.
I agree with you as well. Yes, I'm just not sure if we need additional help with grass cutting this summer, with already having 2 staff. I know one goes to the roads for a period of time, but grass cutting is usually one. Yeah. Is that that's in August though, right?
Usually it's July and most of August. Yes, first 2 weeks of August. July and first 2 weeks of August. That's typically when it is. Sometimes it moves around a wee bit depending on what Chris decides and what the weather conditions are, et cetera. But
can I ask how much time you spend on grass cutting? Because I imagine the student doesn't do much more than grass cutting. Is it a 1 day a week job, or one day every 2 weeks, or is it more than that? I just need to know to help me decide.
Grass cutting, we typically spread that out over the course of the week, doing it in earlier hours of the day when it's hotter, and then we'll move the student to other projects once it gets too hot to be running the whippersnipper push mower. Some of the projects we've had the students do in the past is working on the rinks, or the playground surface, doing the tilling in the playground surface, maintaining the infield of the ball field to ensure that it doesn't get overgrown with grass and weeds. We'll use them for working on the rink board repairs. Also, when the roads guys are doing ditching, if there's any nice material, we try and get some of that and fix up any low level or uneven spots in the yards. So we do keep the student busy, and if there's no work for them because it's raining and the inside projects are caught up, we send them home.
Thank you.
So personally, I would like to see a student hired to help out during the summer when we lose one employee to the roads department. Any other comments? Sandy?
Can't hear you.
I gotta turn my mute off. One of the things I was going to say about the student was definitely the ice rink, but Cindy beat me to it. I think the other thing that we could be using a student for is getting the garbage from the swimming hole, or, you know, picking up garbage along the side of the road. The doors at the changing rooms need to be painted. I think these are the type of jobs that a student is more probably easily to be used, rather than one of our other staff that we pay a higher wage to. And also, it's a great opportunity for our kids that are living here to get work experience. Where are they going to get the work experience if we don't give them the opportunity? We do have kids living in Calvin, so I think we should try to help accommodate that. And if it's just minimum wage and we, you know, get bang out of our buck for it, I think it should definitely be something that is considered. Also, in the capital expenditures here, I think that we might want to consider the furnace. I kind of expected with the LED lights being put in that we would have a better savings in the hydro, and there's not that much of a difference. So maybe it's the electrical heating heater in the changing room that should be maybe addressed. I mean, not very many people use those type of heaters anymore. And there's a highlighted amount here of 2,956 in red. Why is that? Is that the money that is left over for the rec fund? Jacob?
That money, I believe, Cindy can confirm this, but is actually the rebate we got on the door, the discounts we got on the doors because of the delays that it took to have that project completed by the contractor. Would you like to speak to that, Cindy?
Okay.
Yes, that's essentially it. We budgeted a certain amount last year, and because there was a credit because of what happened with the doors, the accessibility doors for the community hall, we actually, less money was spent. So that's the credit that we have.
Okay.
That's for last year, though. That doesn't pertain to this year.
Okay.
Okay, guess we can move on.
Okay, planning and development. So again, we don't have a planner on staff, so that's why there's nothing in those first few sections. Services, we have a annual return, the CGIS contract that we have. Total cost for that is $9,275 per year. There's a retainer fee. At the moment, we're still in our transition period between the gentleman that was supposed to retire 3 years ago now, and our new planner. So we don't actually have a retainer set for the new planner or the old planner. We pay the new planner. Whenever I ask a question of our new planner, he just bills me on an hourly basis instead of having a retainer. And the old planner only works on certain things such as our OP and the zoning bylaw. So we're not paying him a retainer anymore either because he only works on those specific things. So this is, I've estimated $5,000 that we're going to have to pay some planner, either one of them, hopefully finish the zoning bylaw this year. Any other miscellaneous costs associated with the OP, and any questions that we may have to ask the new planner. So that's where that comes from. Zoning bylaw, again, it's unknown when we're going to finish that. I'm hoping it will be this year, but I think we're waiting to see how the OP progresses. Hopefully we'll find out shortly how that works, or if there's any further questions or any changes that we need to make, etc. Again, this is just an estimate that I've put in here of what the cost for the zoning will cost. $2,500 is the standard fee for the East Nipissing Planning Board. The zoning amendments, this is again just an estimate that we put in every year. This is essentially one minor variance and one zoning bylaw amendment. This is the cost for MPACT for this year, and the estimated cost for a potential cleanup for the Carmichael drain. Any questions about planning and development? Okay. We already went through building. I don't think anybody had any questions about that. Okay. Finally is enforcement. So Jacob, do you want to go over this?
Yes, I can go over this. So materials and supplies, salaries and benefits includes the potential increase. The livestock value or fence viewer and canine expenses is the difference between the 2020 budget and the actual due. It's gone up slightly because in 2020, I guess we learned that the payouts for dead stock have increased. Mileage has stayed the same. WSIB is calculated off of wages. Miscellaneous, I have included 500 budgeted in here for injured dogs, if not used, to put it into reserves, to build up to that 5,000 over 10 years, which actually decreased because we were able to have more surplus than anticipated in the miscellaneous line last year. CPP is calculated off of wages. Police services is our costing OPP. 911 maintenance, that is a CERB contract, which is billed to us annually, and the cost of the signs and posts. We'll have a new sign bust. We have our conservation authority, which has increased slightly over last year. And then animal control, this is where we pay the vet unit for it's a decreased amount that the vet charges to the local people, the local farmers coming out. And this also includes our cost for taking dogs to the Humane Society contract or agreement allows for 50 dogs per year in this. Are there any questions about this line or this section?
Mayor Pennell, we can't hear you talking if you're talking.
I keep turning off mute. Okay, so I asked, is there any other questions from anyone for Jacob? It doesn't look like it. Everybody's shaking their head, so thanks very much, Jacob.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last little bit here, so this is what the 2021 levy is, this right here. As per our AMP bylaw, we put 1% of the previous year's amount away in reserves to help us towards our AMP costs. Pardon me. So that's what this value is here. This $12,738 is based on last year's levy. So the total levy, including that, be transferred to reserves, is this amount here. This was the 2020 levy, and so the difference between the two is $215,808, which accounts for a 16.94% levy change. Bear in mind, this is not the same as a tax rate increase. This is not the tax rate. This is just the change in the levy. So you have to take into consideration last year we reduced things and we've added a bunch of things back into it, into the budget, plus certain things like costs have increased. There's certain things have increased. So in the grand scheme of things, this isn't a huge amount. On average, I looked in the past, I look back to 2016, the average levy increase was between 5 and 10%. So because we reduced costs last year and we reduced the budget, et cetera, by approximately 5% last year, this levy change is actually not too bad.
Any questions, anyone? Sandy?
I expected it to be more, actually. So I'm happy with that.
Mr. Maxwell?
Well, I'm not happy with it. I think it could come down a little bit, but we did discuss some areas in the budget where we looked at where we could try a few things.
Where you still
Listen, I mean, it shows this includes some. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
No, it keeps breaking up.
This includes the 35,000. Maybe if I'll just shut off my. So it includes the. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? It includes the 35,000 that's in the capital budget for the rec, which we haven't really decided on that yet neither. So I think there will be some changes in this. Hopefully we can get it down a little bit. I'm not looking forward to. I don't want to put a big tax increase on our residents this year, just because we didn't last year. And I don't think we have to make up 100% of everything that we cut last year. Some things were cut, but we didn't have to make up for those, like some of the roads that we canceled last year. And so I don't expect that we have to double our taxes this year just because we didn't double them last year.
I agree, but this is just the levy though we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. But it does reflect on the end tax situation.
Yeah, well, there's going to be more changes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's some definite cuts that can happen.
Anything, Heather?
I agree. That $35,000 is going to be cut quite significantly. I mean, the hall's not even being used. So it's a good start.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Any other comments from anyone?
The big one is what'll happen in a closed meeting. That'll be a big factor in how the budget goes. When we discuss wages, that will affect the budget significantly. So we'll have to see, determine how much the budget needs to be revised or not.
That's right. Part of that will depend on that for sure. Okay, so if that's all the discussion, we'll move on to the next item. Okay. Then there was, the next item here was M, how Impact assesses farm property. It was, you could go look at it on the internet.
Can you give a little synopsis? I don't have adequate internet. I have to save up my internet for Zooms, so I wasn't able to watch it. I wanted to, but I only had like 10% internet left. I got a warning, so I had to save it up for my Zoom meeting.
Okay. So there's a number of information letters that were included in the package again this month. I don't know if anybody has any that they'd like to discuss. I've seen that Sandy and Heather were both mentioned in item N, and then Calvin was mentioned in T, and one other one, I can't remember which the other one was for Calvin, but there was two for Calvin and one for Sandy and Heather, right?
Yeah,
so are there anything here that you want to discuss, Sandy?
I had, oh boy. See, this is where we go back to, I should have my iPad because I don't actually have the letters in front of me. I've got them all circled, which ones I was interested in, but I didn't write down why. Go to somebody else. I'm gonna look this up here.
What letters are they? And I'll pull them up on the screen.
I have maybe beside A, which is Kitchener, the Planning Act timelines. Number D, it said Township of Essa, and it says support for Bill 257, but I have no idea. I couldn't find where what they were talking about. Yeah, it says the support, but what are they supporting?
You'd have to look up what Bill 257 is. Off my head, I don't remember what it is. I'll have to look it up.
I should remember that.
All right.
There was a whole bunch of people asking for that to be removed. And I can't remember now what it was.
Only other two things was
infrastructure expansion.
Can you repeat that, please?
Supporting Broadband and Infrastructure Expansion Act.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Okay, then Sandy, what was your second one?
It was just I had that was the second one. The only other two I had was that I thought were very interesting reads were the I for the municipal affairs of housing for the annual repayment, and the AMO, they were talking about the code of conduct and how they're going to launch to get more information how to make all this work better, because this is a new thing that has come across and it's causing a lot of uproar in most municipalities, and how they're going to take information. I thought that was a interesting read as well. But there wasn't
I
anything
think there'll be
particular
more
that I wanted.
information coming forth in the next week or so on that one.
Yeah. There wasn't anything I wanted to support. We've already, I mean, most of the ones in there, we've already either supported or we were mentioned in, so that was kind of nice.
Okay.
Cindy did a great job writing that up.
Yes. Councillor Maxwell? Any
No.
letters in there? No?
No, nothing to, nothing I want to support. It's,
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Olmsted?
And nothing I really want to support. The only one that stuck out for me was 7B. Again, for insurance purposes, how insurance keep downloading more responsibility onto this. So the municipality of Tweed and Zora basically want to have them assume the liability, I guess, at joint. That's being put down onto us, which is right, because more and more insurance claims they're holding municipalities liable, right? And so now the lawyers see us with deep pockets and are suing the municipality instead of, you know, the guy just taking his own blame that he caused the accident or whatever. They're saying, well, it's your fault because your roads weren't good. That's what I mean. I just want to make that kind of, it's being downloaded to us, and it's going to cause our premium. Well, it did cause our premiums to go up, I think, significantly this year.
So is there anything you want to do with this?
I don't think there is. Like, it's too vague. I want to be more
Okay.
specific.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So if there's nothing there that we're going to support or respond to, next item on the agenda is information letters available, and I don't think there are any. And then the next item after that is old and new business. Do you have anything old or new, Councillor Olmsted?
No, no, I don't think so. Unless we're going to talk about Stewart's Road or anything. Are we going to do that separately? I don't know how we're supposed to move forward with Miss. What's her last name?
Not on the agenda for.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So we will do it at a different meeting.
Yeah, we'd have to put it on the agenda as agenda item. Decide what.
Okay.
What it is we're trying to resolve.
Great. Okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
I believe there's something going to come forth at the next meeting, on my understanding. Anything old or new for you, Councillor Maxwell?
nothing.
Okay, Councillor Croft?
No, just
Cindy? Oh.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I was going to say something else and yeah, it's all right.
Oh, go ahead.
No, just with all of what's going on in the municipality and other municipalities with houses going for sale and the crazy prices that they're selling them at. I'm a little worried about what our assessment's going to be coming in at when MPAC decides to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, but. Do you have anything old or new, Cindy?
Yes. I just wanted to mention to council, last meeting, sorry, I don't remember who asked, but they wanted council wanted further details in regards to how the breakdown was determined for the Police Services Board which has also now become the breakdown for the community safety and well-being committee. So I spoke to the secretary for the Police Services Board, and she had to do some searching because it's been like that for many, many, many years. Essentially, before the board, the way it is now, was in place, the province determined what the split was between the four of us. And it has just been carried on from that time. So she estimates it was approximately 15, 20, maybe even more than that. She only went so far back because there's only so much time in a day. So essentially the split came from the province.
Well, it's not fair, I'll just say that. After it's twice the size of us and we're paying the same as them. It's, I don't know, perhaps we need to relook at that in some way. Have that re-looked at. Just it's not fair per person, per resident, per anything. Papineau is growing really steadily over the years. They've got a bigger tax base and their population is going up way faster than ours is.
It's all dependent upon how it's calculated. If it's calculated using our weighted assessment, it is actually fair.
Oh.
It's so.
Because they have a pipeline too, or they have more pipeline than we have. Okay.
No, we have the most in the area.
All right, you win.
That's why we all try to keep away from that weighted assessment.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else, Cindy?
Just an update in terms of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, the governance team, which is made up of the 4 CAO clerk treasurers for the 4 municipalities. We had a meeting on Monday, and we are investigating the possibility of different consultants. Unfortunately, so far the research, which was asked to myself, everybody in this area appears to be either not using a consultant and doing it on their own, or they are using the consultant that we're using. The City of North Bay, I believe East Ferris, I have yet to confirm that. I have sent out message to the CAO Ferris to confirm, but information that I've received from the City of North Bay, from Bondfield, sorry, the other municipalities are escaping me at the moment. Anyway, most of the other municipalities in the area are using this particular gentleman. And they've all said that he's reasonably cost, and you know, he knows what he's talking about, makes the process very simple and easy for us all. The other municipalities that are doing it on their own, their one comment has been, you know, they split it. Usually it's a regional thing. They split it, but it does take up quite a bit of time. So there's pros and cons to both situations. In this particular case, what we have left to do is to build a toolkit, and a toolkit will essentially lay out how we go about tackling the initiatives that we determine per year. So remember, this is a fluid document, a dynamic document. It'll change from year to year. So for instance, if this year we decide to focus on broadband, what initiatives are we going to do in order to try and get better internet in our local area? And the toolkit will outline how we go about doing that, so that it's consistent. And then say next year we decide to do, you know, there's an issue with crime, so we decide to do a neighborhood watch program. Again, the toolkit determines how we go about initiating that initiative. So it's very important that we have this toolkit so that everybody knows what they're doing and how it's going to be done, et cetera. So that's just sort of an update on the governance. The advisory committee, which includes all the council members, DSAB, the OPP, the hospital, all those different stakeholders, those meetings will begin again in the fall. But we have to get the plan in place, and the deadline for the plan to be in place is July the 1st. So we're well on track with it. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Cindy? Heather?
Are we closer to getting a new counselor?
Oh, you're talking about vacancy.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, that's not to do with the community safety and well-being. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I just.
The application deadline is Friday.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell,
can't hear
you're
you,
on
Dan.
mute.
Do you have applications? Do you have participants?
Yes, we have received some applications.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, anyone? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the accounts approval report. And we have a resolution in front of us. I need a mover and a seconder for it. Councillor Maxwell, can you move this one, please?
Yes, Ken.
And Councillor Olmsted, can you second it?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a resolution moved by Councillor Maxwell and seconded by Councillor Olmsted that the disbursements dated April 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $42,413.21 and April 27th in the amount of $4,711.51 be hereby authorized and passed for payment. Any questions or discussion? Councillor Cross.
No discussion.
Councillor Maxwell.
No discussion.
And Councillor Olmsted.
No discussion.
Okay. So I'm going to call for a vote to authorize these payments. Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yes.
And Councillor Olmsted.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So this resolution is carried. Next item on the agenda is closed portion, which there is none. Business arising from a closed portion, which there is none. Notice of motions, I don't see any. And so the last item on the agenda is the adjournment. So we should have a resolution here to adjourn the meeting. Need a mover and a seconder to do this. Councillor Cross, can you move this one, please?
Yes.
And Councillor Olmsted, can you second this one, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we have a resolution moved by Councillor Cross, seconded by Councillor Olmsted, that this regular meeting of the council now be adjourned at 10:09 p.m. Any discussion? Councillor Cross?
No discussion.
Councillor Maxwell?
No.
Councillor Olmsted?
No.
So I'm going to call for a vote to close the meeting. Councillor Cross, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Councillor Olmsted, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
And Councillor Maxwell, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So this resolution carried. Meeting is over. So that's it for tonight, folks. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night,
night.
thank you.
Yes,
You too.
Next meeting.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night. You too.
Good night.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.